Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Monday and this is Nolly, who's been hanging around in the background of some of my videos recently. He was an acquisition from a jumble sale at some point earlier this year. I really like him, Nolly. He can sit somewhere here. Today I thought I would do something a bit different because in the last week I've watched about 15 movies. Every night I've had about 2 films. It must be over a week, slightly, because the evenings have been really warm and it's just been nice just to calm down and soothingly watch an old movie. And I've had this plan, a bit like reading all the books in the house. I want to watch my way through DVDs that are here in the house that have somehow I haven't watched yet, interspersing them with some films that have become favourites and some films that I want to see again after a while, just to confirm whether I like them or not. And so taking the kind of choice part of it out of the equation is really useful for me. I could sit for hours debating which film to watch and discussing it with Jeremy, or worse, letting him choose. He chooses terrible films. He always chooses people floating about in space, usually wearing military fatigues and shouting at each other in the dark. Anyway, taking the element of choice out of it, or at least realizing that you've chosen to have these things in your house at some point, so you must have wanted to have watched them at some point, and just putting them in order on a shelf and selecting the next 2 and watching them. It can turn up all kinds of interesting responses and surprises. So I'll work my way through the week's viewing, I'll tell you. Okay, here's the pile of DVDs. Now, I've got to tell you, I am a complete devotee of physical media. I always have been, back from the days of Betamax cassettes. And before that, recording onto audio cassette the soundtracks of TV shows and films and listening to them again and again, to listen to the rhythms of dialogue. That's what I used to do when I was a teenager. But I'm still a massive devotee of physical media, and I was right. The streaming services are absolute rubbish. They will allow you to watch their collection and you can subscribe to it, but they can take away what they want when they want, and you're left with nothing. And you're left with choosing from the sometimes kind of meagre supply of old things they've got, or the terrible things they commission. Sometimes good things they commission, but they only run for 1 season and then they cancel it once you're into it. Or the endlessly constipated storytelling of streaming service TV, where they have too many elements, too many mysteries, and the plot moves on so slowly each episode that you want to scream rather than binge. Anyway, individual films on discs has always seemed to me to be the kind of right way to deliver this kind of stuff. And having heaps of these around the house is no great hardship. Though we went to a car boot sale yesterday, and there they all were with their huge boxes and bags of all their DVD collections, selling everything for 50p each or less. Wasn't very tempting because most people's films are dreadful things that you would never want to watch, but just ordinary, obvious things, that you've seen or that are on the telly or turn up everywhere. I'm always looking for things slightly off the beaten track. Not always. I think the obviousness of everything is something that I'm finding quite irksome at the moment, because we're inside an era where people plump for the obvious each time, and I see that happening in so many of the things that I enjoy. Obviousness. Anyway, these are the films. Bargee on the Beach, I'd never seen. It's a film for film, and I can't read any of the writing on the back. It's set in it's near Birmingham, isn't it? And it's an ensemble piece, and they all go to Blackpool for the day. And they're mostly, I think they're British Pakistani people, aren't they? I think, or Indians. I'm not sure. I should do. Anyway, it's a lovely ensemble piece. In some ways, it's a bit homemade. It looks very much of the early 90s. I think it would have looked slicker then as a piece of work. There's something slightly ramshackle, but endearing because of that. It reminds me of watching late night films on Channel 4, homegrown movies that are all about, that are character pieces, that are like Mike Leigh films, that are true to those characters. And sometimes some of the acting is a bit shonky. This has Dev, who later became, well, he's not called Dev in this, the actor who plays Dev on Coronation Street and who's played him for about 30 years. And the thing about that actor is he behaves as if he's in Mean Streets, the Scorsese movie, when he's in Coronation Street. And it's funny to see him even more like that back in the, whenever it is, 92, 93. So I just enjoyed seeing a very familiar world and familiar people in a world that's such a long time ago now, the early 90s. So my response was kind of, actually, as days went by and I carried on thinking about it, I enjoyed this film more, which means that it's something I will revisit. That's interesting. Films go on, like books, if they're good or if they have anything in them, they go on playing themselves out in your head days afterwards. This didn't. Better Living. Now, I thought it was going to be good because it's Olympia Dukakis and it's Roy Scheider with new false teeth by the looks of it. At some point in the late 90s, it's based on a film, based on a Broadway play, I think, about a very eccentric family, eccentric daughters, everybody overacting like mad and behaving very weirdly. And they're all under kind of siege inside their house by a very domineering father who's come back from the dead and seemingly convinced his ex-wife that he's a new person, so she gives him another chance. I thought it was kind of not very good. It looked like it was going to be good at the start, and I thought I'd found, a hidden gem. It wasn't a hidden gem. Now, Confessions of a Shopaholic. I've never read the books by, I forget who it is now. It doesn't matter. And when I found out the film had been made 20 years ago or so by P.J. Hogan, who made my favourite film ever, Muriel's Wedding. And he also made Unconditional Love, which I discovered last year, another kind of late 90s movie by him that's eccentric and wonderful. So I thought, even though this is a kind of very commercial, very chick lit film, there's nothing wrong with the term chick lit or rom-com, but there are examples of the genre which are just like too far along for me. And this is kind of it, really. Even with a fantastic director like that, you can feel that he's just doing the thing that the studio expects. And you end up just wondering about the morality of it all. This bloody woman buying all this stuff. And, true love triumphs in the end and she ends up with a bloke. But, she's lucky in that she doesn't have to go into debt anymore because he's minted and he's got millions. And you think, why didn't they make him somebody poor? And she actually learned not to buy loads of shite in the shops. People are backed up in their belief that just acquisition and new shiny stuff is the way forward somehow. Just nonsense. Awful. Very early 2000s. Almost like kind of reviving the 1980s greed, really. I hope the books don't do that. I have a feeling they might. Anyway, same night, I rewatched Warlords of Atlantis, Doug McClure, one of the great films in that set of 4 fantasy movies from the 70s, At the Earth's Core being the best of them. But this gives it a run for its money. All sorts goes on in this. There's some hilarious sequences. The projectile flying fish, the kind of flying piranhas is one of my favourite bits. I love this whole genre. Kevin Connor was the director of these and the People and Land That Time Forgot and At the Earth's Core. There's something wholeheartedly fun about these kind of Edwardians with dinosaurs movies. Yeah, proper film. Then I rewatched Stargate, which I'd seen in the 90s. and I enjoyed. Now it seems like a terrible piece of nonsense. It's a lovely concept, and I love the Egyptology stuff and James Spader being this expert. But it's pretty soon, once they get through to the other side of the universe via the Stargate, turns into the usual kind of action adventure shite. And it's at the time that CGI is coming through. So we get lots of computer generated slop. Now, this is going to be a repeated theme if I talk about films for any length of time, but I can't stand it. I think it's alienating. It's not about anything tactile or real. It takes us away from the scale of living, of ordinary people, and we get these spectacles of, hundreds of people running over the horizon, hitting each other, but it looks like a computer game, and there's too much of that rubbish. It alienates us from empathy, and we have no feeling for these little stickmen running about. And I think Stargate is at the kind of beginning of that change in genre film. And it's a shame. You see it happen as they leave one side of the Stargate to go to the other. That's when it happens, perhaps. So yeah, I thought in the end it was terrible. It does a good job with the Egyptology and the idea, the kind of Eric von Daniken idea of chariots of the gods, that Egyptian culture, for example, could have originated on the other side of the universe and been brought here by aliens. And of course, that's what Doctor Who did with the original conception of Pyramids of Mars in 1976. Later, undermined, I think, and ruined, really, with Empire of Death in last year's Doctor Who, when Russell T Davies decided that the Egyptian thing had to be ditched because it was cultural appropriation. Although I think in its original idea and in Stargate, it's the opposite. It's all about, rather, cultural appropriation, that this is how culture works. Aliens from a different galaxy come and take over the world and give their culture to the world, and the humans take it on. So really, it's a model of cultural appropriation. Anyway, I didn't enjoy Stargate much. It was just kind of going on busily. On the same night that I rewatched Angel Heart, which I saw at university when we used to pay £7.50 for a 10 stamps on a card to go to the university cinema. And we used to go almost every night of the week because there was nothing else to do on campus. And in those years, 88, 89, we saw so many brilliant films. There were so many films that have become absolute favourites of mine, like Fried Green Tomatoes or Beaches. Angel Heart was one of them, and somehow I've missed out on seeing it again. I don't think it was easy to get hold of on DVD for a long time. I don't know why. And I happened upon this somewhere, I don't know, recently for £1. And it was just as good as I remembered. It was more gory and more brutal and peculiar than I remembered. And it's a bit no holds barred, really. I think if it was made these days, they'd soften some of the more strange and brutal bits, perhaps, I think. And I just loved De Niro in this. To me, back then watching it, he was absolutely terrifying. The calm of his voice as the devil, or as he's called in this, is it Louis Cypher? And Mickey Rourke is fantastic in it as well, really wonderful in it. And it's terrible thinking about him shambling about on Big Brother this year, that he was like that then, and such a good actor. So that's been a good thing. So out of these first 3 nights and the first 6, there's been Bargy on the Beach and Angel Heart that's been any good at all. But then I had an evening with Water for Elephants. I read the book in 2009 and I liked it, but I'd forgotten how much I'd liked it and how good it was. And watching the movie, which is a kind of 1930s, 40s pastiche of a kind of black and white melodramatic movie of that time, about the boy who runs away, the orphan, joins the circus and falls in love with the ringmaster's girlfriend. and there's an elephant on the train with them. And so much of it was socked away in my head, and it came to life again as I watched the movie. And I just think it's a beautifully made film. And actually, the CGI that they use is discreet and all in aid of bringing things to life on a human level, so that when tigers run amok towards the end, they can do it, and they are there amongst the people. It's not quite convincing, but they're having a go. It doesn't take you into realms of kind of ludicrousness. Anyway, I really liked it, and it made me re-buy the book in hardback, because I read it on Kindle back in 2009, which is useless. It means I can summon it up on my device, but who cares? I want a lovely hardback of it on the shelf if I liked it. And it made me realise that Sarah Gruen had written other books since then as well, so I had to catch up with those too. So there's something good, that tangentially good, coming out of watching these movies. The next night, Tokyo Story, which I've seen before. It's one of the most upsetting, miserable films. Don't let that put you off. It's about the elderly parents living in the countryside, going into the city to spend time with their children, their grown-up children who have their own lives. One of them's died in the war. The others are too busy, too self-centered to spend much time with them. And they get they're so polite and so kind, but they're buffeted about by their slightly uncaring children. And, the old father gets drunk, the old mother, something terrible happens, and I won't tell you what. And it just bimbles along in black and white with this incredible detail, completely believable. And I love it. It's a very gentle film, and your heart aches by the end of it. So there's 4 that have worked out. 4 out of 8. Something I'd never seen and always meant to was George Lucas's movie THX 1138, which was slightly different to what I expected. I expected it to be like 1984, to have the same themes and ideas, but to be kind of cheaper. And the photos I'd seen to be on this completely blank set, this white set. But it does build a very convincing world. I love the kind of analog technology and the brutality of it all, and the kind of 70s retro future of multi-story car parks, which it seems to be shot in. And then the kind of the underpass they're racing through with this amazing car chase at the end, and the final bit where he emerges into the daylight. I appreciated it rather than enjoyed it, I think. Then I fell back on things I know I love. And the Stepford Wives from the late 70s, from an Ira Levin novel adapted by William Goldman. You can't go wrong, really. Our copy, is really fuzzy and just awful, terrible. And it cost, I see now from the Virgin Megastore, $14.99 for something that's basically unwatchable. It's like looking at it through toilet paper. And I don't think you can get a fancy copy of this yet, which seems ridiculous. And I think people should be forced to watch Stepford Wives and to watch out. Today's the day that they've just said on the news that the term trad wife has slipped into the Cambridge Dictionary, because it's used by people on TikTok to describe women who'd rather stay traditional and stay at home and do all the cooking and cleaning. We're slipping into kind of Orwellian doublespeak and a kind of Stepford world. We must beware. I love that film. I think it's a wonderful, parodic, nasty horror film. Then another dinosaur fantasy movie, Valley of the Gwangi. The people who made the Sinbad movies of the 70s with Ray Harryhausen doing the monsters. I always think this doesn't have much of a story, but actually it was all right, even if once the monster's dead at the end, the film stops. It's one of those pictures where the monster dies, no more story, like the Hammer horror films. Then I watched a John Waters movie, which I've never seen, Cry Baby, with Johnny Depp and Iggy Pop and various others. And for some reason, I thought it was just going to be very one note, a kind of follow on from the atmosphere of Hairspray, but not as good. And actually, it's hilarious. It's it's a big two fingers up to conservative wankers, as usual. And you think, my God, all the villains in this, the squares, the righteous religious right that John Waters is sending up as something from the past, from the 1950s. These are the people currently taking over the world. So I think timely as ever from John Waters. Then I watched something which I've seen glimpses of but never sat and watched the whole of, My Beautiful Laundrette, which is the launch pad for Stephen Frears as a director, Hanif Qureshi as a writer, and Daniel Day-Lewis as an actor. I think that's right, for all of them. Another film. And I kind of didn't like it. It's meant to be groundbreaking in so many ways. And it has so many things I love, the kind of small locale, the place that brings them all together, the reinvention of something dismal from the past into something marvellous in the now, and the kind of defeat of the baddies through subversion and joy. But this is filled with awful characters. It's filmed in this kind of dreary way, quite dark. And even the kind of gay stuff, it's a bit coy, and maybe that was just the time, a bit coy and a bit salacious, like, oh, this is shocking. And maybe I'm just, I don't know, looking back at a time, this is 1985, it's 40 years ago. Maybe I'm being unfair. But I do think we could have more likeable characters at the heart of it. I love the bits where the families, the big families together and troubles brewing, and you learn a bit about the kind of closed world of these Pakistani businessmen and their families. That's really interesting. But even that doesn't quite convince. It's heightened in a particular way, but I don't think I believe in it quite. Then last night, Green Lantern, which has knocked about in the house for ages and ages, one of the kind of failed DC films. I think it was a failure, like so many of those were. The dark and dingy ones about Superman and Batman, where they're so dark you're looking at the screen to see what's going on. It isn't quite like that. It's more like one of the Marvel failures, in that it's lots and lots of CGI plop and a hero that goes to fight a huge cosmic bum-headed villain in space who can't quite articulate what his plans are, but the hero keeps shooting at him until he explodes, and that's the end of it. And there's been this awful long backstory and mythology that's been intoned by a very grand voice over the beginning credits and over the end credits, and you just don't care. And there's too many characters running about in green costumes. I thought it was absolutely awful. It's saved in part by, what's he called? Ryan Reynolds, who's so ironic and funny, and you can tell there's a glimmer of amusement in everything he does. And of course he ends up doing Deadpool in the same genre to great effect. So that was kind of recognised clearly that he's a great importer of an ironic undertone to the superhero world. Doesn't get a chance to shine in this. The villain is very good, I thought. The kind of Elephant Man type scientist villain who gets to shout and stamp. And I don't know who played that part. And it made it, for a while, about halfway through, almost enjoyable. And that's about as much as I can say for it. Reminded me quite a lot of Marvel's The Eternals movie, which, was clearly made by somebody who didn't care for comics, didn't understand comics, had no interest in comics, and I think had no interest in films either, because it was completely devoid of joy in film storytelling. And that's a bit of a problem, I think, with films that are tending towards, 3 hours long, although this is a bit shorter, and it's mostly spectacle. And then I rewatched, this is up to date now, with, midnight last night, I was rewatching The Conjuring, which was a lot scarier than I remembered. And I was sat in the house by myself while DJ Jeremy was off doing his thing, rewatching this film, which I must have seen first about 12 years ago. It's become camp in retrospect, much camper than it was, because so many of its effects and tropes have been reused and parodied and ripped off over the years. So this is in some way the kind of urtext of so many spooky films of the last 10 or 15 years. There's some great performances. I love what she called the woman who was in John Waters' Pecker. Lily Taylor? I think that's right. Is it Lily Taylor? As the possessed wife in this house. And she gets to scream and squawk and panic and strangle her own children and run about. And at the end, when she's being exorcised in the cellar, they chuck a tea towel over her head. So the climax of her performance, her exorcist moment, is lost under a tea towel or a sheet or whatever it is, which is a real shame. But it made me laugh. And it made me want to watch The Conjuring 2 and all the Annabelle movies about the spooky doll that we see at the beginning of this. It is a genre that I like an awful lot. So, out of 15 movies, there was The Conjuring, Cry Baby, Stepford Wives, which I knew was good, Tokyo Story, which I knew was good, Warlords of Atlantis, which I knew was good, and Bargy on the Beach. 6 out of 15 were any cop. Oh, and Water for Elephants, did I say that? And Angel Heart. 7. I might have counted more than twice. I think half of them I actually enjoyed. The rest, there's no time wasted. I'm refining my thoughts on films the whole time I'm watching. And it's all interesting, isn't it? Even the most dull and peculiar film. You think, how on earth did they get this made? What on earth were they thinking of when they made it? All of that is useful, I think, to consider. Anyway, that's my viewing of late. I might do some more of this. Well, I will do some more of this. I'll carry on watching films. I'm really enjoying watching a couple of films per night and making my way through the stacks. Let me know down below if you want to see more of me talking about films. Or is it worse than me talking about books? Right, they're down there. Can you hear Socks shouting? He's going to come running up, I think. Or maybe I've got to go running down and feed him. I've gone on too long. I will see you again quite soon. Do take care. Oh, here he comes. Socks! Come on, come and say hello. Sorry about this. Socky, come on. Come on, have you not been fed? Goodbye, everyone. I'll see you again very soon.